So, you want to run Leadville. So, you want to run Leadville. This iconic 100-miler is one of the true OGs on the 100-mile scene. First, Western States began in 1974 and is arguably the most iconic, legendary 100-miler in the country, if not the world. Then, the Wasatch Front 100 in Utah began in 1980. It's the final challenge annually of completing the Grand Slam of ultra running. Next, in 1983, the legendary Leadville 100 was founded by Ken Klubeler. Many of you know the story. Ken was a mining foreman in a successful, if not wealthy, town when global economic changes caused the price of adamantium to fall. The Climax mine, it's not like it sounds, which Ken worked at, began laying off workers and putting the mine on hold until prices rose again in the 1990s. Ken gives a speech every year prior to the beginning of the race, telling the story of how he knew something had to be done to save the people in his town and his town as a whole. He and other community leaders got together to brainstorm ideas on how they could save the town. One person suggested they begin a 10K run. That's when Ken recalled hearing about a crazy 100-mile race that was taking place in California. He knew what had to be done. I love hearing him recall the way the idea struck him. He says, people could come and run a 10K and go home that evening, or even a marathon, but you run 100 miles and you're damn sure gonna spend the night. Now, many people have come to know the Leadville race by reading the book Born to Run by a guy named McDougall. It's an enthralling story that would make anyone want to throw away their running shoes and chase down an antelope with a beer in their hand. In fact, that's how I heard about the race too. And having run a handful of 50-milers and some Ironman races, I thought, what the heck, why not? In fact, my good friend Chris and I had talked about it several times while on training runs. And one day in 2012, I got a text from him saying, dude, Leadville, are you down? I thought, why not? So on a weighing and a prayer, I went down or up to Leadville in August of 2013, only to return home a few days later with my tail tucked between my legs. Definitely did not finish. Defeated. My only DNF ever. I had a spontaneous pneumomediastinum to boot, which is a small hole in your lung, probably caused by the elevation. Now, 2013 was a notorious year at Leadville. That year did a lot of damage to the reputation of this iconic race. Lifetime Fitness had purchased it, and there was no lottery to get in, and they let in a ridiculous 1,200 people. My luck. Aid stations ran out of everything, especially Hopeless Aid Station at the top of Hope Pass, where the llamas have to pack in the supplies. But I digress. The real question is, what happened to me? Why didn't I finish? If we can answer that question, we can help you finish, whether it's your first time or your third time trying to finish Lead. Number one, stay close. The day before the race, there's a race briefing at 11 a.m. Packet pickup is between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. Drop off your drop bags is between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Are you starting to get the picture? In 2013, I made the mistake of staying in Breckenridge, or as my wife and I now say, Brack. Now, Breck is a beautiful, fun little tourist town with some nice bars and expensive tourist shops, but that's about an hour from Leadville. That's a 2-hour round trip, which means if you're going into Leadville to pick up your packet, you're probably staying in Leadville all day. And if you're staying in Leadville all day, you're probably walking around enjoying the town and getting exhausted, not to mention dehydrated. Remember, you're at 10,000 feet. So, stay close. Make it a priority. This last year, we stayed at the Sugarloaf and Campground, which is about 5 minutes from town. That's 5 minutes to packet pickup, 5 minutes to the pre-race briefing, and 5 minutes to the race start. Not bad. Numero dos. Go to bed. 4 a.m. is early. It means you're probably getting up at 2 or 3 a.m. and that hurts. Nobody feels good at 2 a.m. and you're going to stay up all day and all night running. Set yourself up for success. Number 3, avoid caffeine. For the first 8 to 12 hours of the race, don't have any caffeine. Now the best way to do this is to taper off your caffeine use the last 2 weeks prior to the race. If you can, taper off to none or very little caffeine. In 2013, I didn't taper off caffeine. I had coffee at 3 a.m. prior to the race start and caffeine throughout the race. And by 8 p.m. that night, this last year, I waited until Twin Lakes Outward Bound to have any caffeine, and I think I'm going to wait even longer this coming year because I felt great for quite a while, but around 5 a.m. climbing up the power line, my chest hurt and I was exhausted, and the idea of having any more caffeine was absurd. So I think I'll wait even longer this year. Number 4, pacing. You've probably heard people say things like go out slow and taper, or forward as a pace, or just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And these are all great things, but may not work in Leadville. The cutoff at 50 miles is tight for most people, and the cutoff at Twin Lakes inbound isn't much better. I can't even begin to tell you how many people I saw last year coming down Hope Pass to Winfield at 5 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. as I was making my way back up Hope Pass. Every single one of them was going to miss the cutoff. You have to run conservative, but with clear objectives. You have to know exactly when you want to get to each aid station and then devote all of your energy and focus into completing your objectives. Race breakdown. Start to May Queen, stage 1. It's 13-ish miles and you start in town. Ken gives you a brief but motivational speech about how every single person there is going to finish. Spoiler alert. And then the gun goes off and everyone runs down the road at what seems like too fast of a pace for 4 a.m. Insider secret, this is the best 13 miles of the run. You're excited, you're as rested as you're going to be, and it's 13 miles of easiest running, cruising around Turquoise Lake. Walk the uphills and shoot for about an 11-minute per mile pace. That puts you getting into May Queen at about 6:15 a.m., an hour ahead of the cutoff. That hour that you've just gained is going to make all the difference coming into Winfield later. Stage 2, May Queen to Outward Bound. This is about an 11-mile section. I drop my jacket and I drop my light at May Queen. I refill my bottles and I get to walking. This is the real start of Leadville. You climb a small hill out of the aid station and you get onto the Colorado Trail, eventually climbing up Sugarloaf Pass on Jeep roads. Take your time on these climbs. I power hike the hills. I see a lot of people jogging up the roads, but remember, you're at 11,000 feet now. We're not in Kansas anymore. Once you hit the top, it's time to go. It's a long and at times technical drop down the power line to 1 to 2 miles of paved road that take you to the Outward Bound aid station. It's easy to maintain a 10-minute pace on this. Your average pace for this section should be around 12 to 13 minutes per mile. Shoot for getting to Outward Bound at around 9 a.m., an hour ahead of cutoff still. Stage 3, Outward Bound to Halfpipe. It's about 6 miles, and this section is a breeze. You cross a field, watch out for all the holes in the ground. You get onto a paved road for a while, turn off onto a dirt road, and you hop back onto the trail for a very small climb. It's easy to maintain a good pace if you keep your focus during this time. Cutoff is 11:20 a.m. here. You can start to gain a little bit of ground on this part and probably get there at 10:10 a.m., a little over an hour ahead of cutoff. Stage 4, Halfpipe to Mount Elbert. Well, Twin Lakes. I don't really consider Mount Elbert Trailhead to be a major waypoint. This is really an 8.5 mile section that gets you to Twin Lakes. And there is some beautiful running in this section and 2 semi-difficult hills, but nothing to get excited about. Your goal should be to get to Twin Lakes at around 12:30 p.m. The cutoff is 2 p.m. You've now gained some more ground and you're an hour and a half ahead of cutoff. You've now got 5.5 hours to traverse Hope Pass to Winfield, but you don't want to use all of that. Stage 5. Buckle up. It's Hope Pass to Winfield. This is it. The S really hits the fan. Don't hang out at Twin Lakes. Don't change your socks. Don't text your mom. Get the hell out of there and start climbing. Shoot for 25 minutes per mile, and counting your inevitable stop at Hopeless Aid Station, your immense self-pity and self-loathing, and it'll probably take you about 2 hours to 2:15 to get to the top of Hope Pass. Both times you climb Hope Pass, remember this one thing. You will feel better when you get off this mountain. Don't forget it. Repeat it to yourself. The dark side of Hope Pass is steep and extremely technical at times, but you can get down off of Hope Pass and into Winfield in about an hour 45 with a steady effort. Don't be surprised by the trail from the bottom of Hope Pass into Winfield. It sucks, and it sucks the life out of you. You literally run past the aid station and then back to it. Stop at the streams on your way, wet your face, wet your head, and keep your head in the game. This is your moment of truth. Who are you? How deep can you dig? Are you a quitter? Are you going to let the suffering beat you? Stage 6. Winfield back to Twin Lakes inbound. Shoot for arriving at Winfield between 4 and 5 p.m. Cutoff is 6. If you can do this, you've nearly got this thing beat. Take 5 minutes, yes, only 5. Change your socks, eat some food, and get the hell out of there. Time spent sitting in Winfield is time forfeited. If you can get back to Twin Lakes by 9 p.m., you've nearly got this thing beat. I'm not saying the rest is going to be easy, but they give you 10 hours to complete the first 38 miles. They give you 12 hours to go the last 38 miles. You're 1 hour ahead of cutoff at 9 p.m., which means you've got 13 hours to do what it took you to do in 8.5 hours on the way out. And that's what you need to remember when you're climbing the dark side of hope and feeling like you can't go on. Don't forget it. And don't forget, get off that mountain and you'll feel better. Stage 7, Twin Lakes to the finish. Just kidding. Twin Lakes to half pipe. It's about 8.5 miles. So, you've made it to Twin Lakes, you've conquered Hope Pass twice, crossed the river again, and now crossed the seemingly never-ending field, probably in the dark or near dark. Now what? It's time to take some time to recuperate. Change your socks, change your shoes if you prefer, and eat a lot of calories. Prepare for the long night. This is one of the only couple of times I think you should spend time in an aid station, and the reason is this. You've just been battered by Hope Pass twice, you're heading into the long night, and when you leave Twin Lakes, it's a steep climb back up to the Mount Elbert trailhead. And if you're anything like me, you're gonna have your poles out and you're not gonna feel much like snacking. Now, at this point, time goals transition. It's about survival. The cutoff at May Queen is 6:30 a.m. That's your primary objective. Step 1, half pipe. It's 8.5 miles away and the cutoff is 1:15 a.m. No problem. If you leave Twin Lakes at 9:15 p.m. and you take a long 3 hours to get there, you're still 1 hour ahead of cutoff. And once you get to the Mount Elbert trailhead, there's actually some really joggable sections if you're up for it. Stage 8. Half pipe to outward bound, inward bound. It's about 6 miles. Cutoff is 3 a.m. Don't spend time at half pipe. Grab some food, fill your bottles, and move. This section is easy, if anything can be easy at this point. It'll probably only take you about an hour and a half, and that's great news, but don't get too excited. Stage 9, outward bound to May Queen. This is where the road forks. It's probably between 1 and 2 in the morning. You're exhausted and possibly cold, and at mile 76. That's a long way to go at altitude. You now have 1 to 2 miles of gradual up on pavement, a left turn, and welcome to hell. A lot of people talk about how hard Hope Pass is, but climbing Sugarloaf at mile 78 at altitude in the middle of the night, it's tough. I've seen people lying under space blankets looking dead on the side of the hill. You've got to want this, and there's no exceptions. And I say the road forks here because I really feel like the last 20 to 30 miles of this makes the difference between a quick time at Leadville and just finishing in the golden hour like I did. And there's nothing wrong with finishing at 29:45. Don't get me wrong, less than 50% of people finish this thing, so finishing is a major accomplishment. If you're able to power up that last climb and run the other almost 20 miles of totally runnable terrain at the end of this, you can come away with a pretty good time at Leadville. But if all you can do is exist and keep moving forward, that's okay too. Once you've reached the top of Sugarloaf Pass, you're home free. Not to say it won't be a bit of a struggle, but you can literally walk it in. Stage 10, the finish. May Queen to Leadville. Just keep an eye on your watch if you're moving slowly down the Colorado Trail. Cutoff at May Queen is 6:30 a.m. That gives you 3.5 hours to walk a half marathon, which is exactly what I did. And you might too. And that's all right. You're going to finish. Pro tip. At 8 a.m., I got a beautiful sunburn walking up the never-ending road to Leadville. Slap on some sunblock at May Queen. And that's the end of the breakdown. Back to the top 10 tips for finishing Leadville. Number 5, albuterol. Have you heard of it? At least 20% of long-distance athletes develop non-cardiogenic pulmonary edema during an event. That's a fancy way of saying you get some fluid in your lungs, but you're not going to die. If you've ever felt wheezing, shortness of breath, and a lot of productive coughing towards the end of one of your runs, you may be one of these 20%. Consider discussing it with your doctor. An albuterol inhaler helped me out immensely at the Cool Jewel 100, but I didn't know about it before Leadville. Number 6, stop hanging out at aid stations. Get your drinks, get your food, and get the hell out of there. If you're throwing down some mediocre 15-minute miles like I am, that 15 minutes you just sat at the aid station could have put you a whole mile down the road. That's 1% of the race. And for God's sake, don't sit down at the hopeless aid station. Remember, get off that mountain. The only exceptions are 5-ish minutes sitting at Winfield, 10 to 15 minutes at Twin Lakes, and 10 minutes at Outward Bound, Inward Bound. Now these small breaks are because you're about to face a big challenge with not a lot of spare energy for eating, so make sure you eat. Number 7, tailwind. Your stomach might hate you the entire time you're at elevation. A lot of people can't eat when they're this high at elevation. If you can't eat, try to drink your calories. Remember, you dehydrate easier also at elevation, so drinking fluid with your calories could help in more than one way. Number 8, salt tabs. Do I even have to say anything? Get some salt tabs. Number 9, sweet acetaminophen. It's your friend. Ibuprofen can hurt your kidneys, especially when you're dehydrated. The Tylenol, processed by the liver. Yeah, I know. Sorry again, liver. Number 10, appreciation. Appreciate the experience. Appreciate the fact that you can even be out here doing this. Other people can't do it. Is it hard? Yes, it's hard. And so are you. Wait, no, that doesn't sound right. This race is hard, but so am I. No, okay, that's not good either. This race will make you hard. Okay, no, I give up. Okay, that's it. That's your top 10 tips for finishing Leadville plus a race breakdown. Good luck, and I hope to see you out there this year.